A 5-0 on the pickleball court looks a lot different than a 4-0, so we're going to break down the top 10 things they do differently to take your game to the next level.
Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on more content. Let's do this. Up first, you know you're playing a 5-0 when they show third shot variety and advanced decision making. 4-0s tend to rely on consistent third shot drops and maybe even a drive, but 5-0s take it a step further. They mix in drives, drops, and lobs depending on the situation rather than just what's comfortable. Let's give you some examples. Let's say you just hit a really good serve and your opponent returns it, but they stay back at the baseline. In this scenario, most 5-0s would take a drive and drive it towards the person who stayed back. On the flip side of this, if your opponent hits a really good return, most likely they're going to be up at the kitchen and already established, so most 5-0s are probably going to hit a drop rather than a drive in this scenario. Here's an even more advanced scenario. So let's say I also hit a really good serve and their return was bad. That person might be rushing up to the kitchen line super fast, and an advanced 5-0 might choose to lob it over their head in this example because their forward momentum is carrying them so fast into the kitchen that they can't recover to defend the lob. 5-0s don't just hit third shots consistently, they pick the most effective for the situation in front of them.
For number 2, 5-0 players have the ability to anticipate opponents' shots, which makes them extra prepared when a ball comes their way and opens up counter opportunities. This, of course, takes hundreds of hours to master, so let's give you some common scenarios to look out for that will make you look like a 5-0 even faster. So we'll focus on gaps, which happen when a shot forces you out of position and opens up a hole for your opponents to take advantage of. Let's go through some examples. One of the most common gaps that we will see in pickleball is the partner back scenario. So kind of like we talked about earlier with Shea, when an opponent stays back on a serve because the serve was so good, usually I would drive cross court to them. But an even smarter opponent would see that I'm about to drive cross court and post the ball for a counterattack. Another example is the open middle. Let's say a dink pushes you very far out wide. That's going to leave a gap in the middle that your opponent could easily hit a shot and win a free point out of. But a very smart player like yourself needs to see that the middle is now open and come back and retaliate with a counter. Let's give you a more advanced example. If your opponent has an opportunity to drive the ball cross court, you might want to poach the ball in that situation. But your opponent will see you move to poach early and hit behind you instead. That's why a 5-0 takes it a step further and fakes a poach, then covers the would-be gap. It's kind of a counter of a counter. And as you learn to spot these scenarios, you'll naturally get more aware on the court. And that's one of the biggest strengths of a 5-0.
Number 3 is all about spin. Most 4-0s can use different forms of spin like topspin and slice, but aren't doing it with the situation in mind. They're doing what's comfortable. The difference with a 5-0 is that they pick the right kind of spin for the situation. 5-0s know all about spin continuation. A typical 4-0 tries to hit whatever feels comfortable. For example, if they come from tennis, they'll probably slice almost every backhand and hit rolling forehands. This can work somewhat, but actually makes their shots more difficult than they need to be. It's way easier to use the spin that's already on the ball rather than try to add your own. Spin continuation, you have to know about this. Your opponent's top spin, if they're hitting the ball and they hit it with top spin like this, when it gets to your side of the court, it's coming at you this direction still, but to you, that looks like backspin. If you try to apply top spin to that ball, you have to actually stop this rotation and then apply your own top spin. It's much easier to just continue with the spin that you're getting and use maybe backhand slice in this example. And on the flip side, their backspin is the same as my top spin, which is why we like to drive sliced returns. So let's say you're in a dink rally and you receive a really heavy topspin cross-court dink. Rather than trying to add your own top spin, it might be smarter just to add a little bit of slice to it and let that spin continue. And the flip side is of course true as well. If you get heavy backspin, now's the time to apply your own top spin. However, sometimes you will get just a flat ball with no spin. That's a blank canvas. Feel free to do whatever you want to with that one. So now we're back at the baseline. Let's say I'm returning. If my opponent's hitting really heavy topspin serves, I'm probably better off hitting slice returns rather than my own topspin returns. If you do try to topspin return a topspin serve, more than likely you'll just end up hitting a flat ball that they can do whatever they want to with. Probably the best use case for this is when you're hitting third shot drops. A lot of times your opponents will hit forehand or backhand rolls at the kitchen, which always apply topspin. So for you hitting a third shot drop, just slightly poke your paddle at it and apply underspin, and those drops are going to be so much easier.
The next big difference is that 5-0's dinks are not just placed with consistency, they're placed in a spot that creates more errors. A typical 4-0 hits dinks like this. They just rally with dead dinks, No spin, no real trajectory. It is consistent, but that's pretty much all they have going for it. It doesn't set up opportunities to make a play. Whereas the 5-0 is going to be trying to move their opponent around to set up gaps or put them out of position or even force a pop-up. So this is what that's going to look like a little bit more if it was down the line. A 5-0 is also going to be looking to target a weakness. The most common one probably being a backhand, so hit to your opponent's backhand with dinks as much as possible. Another option could be to hit to their body or at their feet and see what makes them uncomfortable. A 5-0 is always looking to spot a weakness. Another great option 5-0s will use when dinking is using patterns. An example of a pattern could be hitting 3 dinks to their forehand and then 1 to their backhand. Then rinse and repeat and see if they can eventually make an error. The point of a pattern is to test your opponent's ability to move around the court and hit a variety of shots rather than just hitting the same dink back to them over and over again. Lastly, when a 5-0 does get a dead dink like we saw earlier, they're going to take advantage. They're going to add some spin, they're going to push their opponent's back or hit it out wide. That sets up the point for them to eventually get a winner.
For number 5, you need to be able to speed up the right way. Most 4-0s can also hit a speed up, but often do it at the wrong time or without a target, leading to an easy counter. Here's how to speed up correctly. One of the biggest differences in 5-0s and lower level players is that 5-0s don't just randomly speed up. They look for opportunities and they take advantage of them. At the lower levels, you'll often see people speeding up for the most random positions. If they're slightly off balance or just a little uncomfortable, they're running in, they'll probably speed up there. If the ball's low below the net, they'll probably speed up there. 5-0s don't do this. They look for the right ball and then attack their opponents with intention. Whenever lower level players are speeding up balls from random positions, higher level players can easily counter that or just let the ball go because it's probably going out. So now we need to know how to set up a speed up. There's a few different ways to do this. The most common is just to get your opponent moving around. More than likely, they're going to hit a ball that's higher than usual and they're still recovering. That's the perfect time to speed up at one of your predefined locations. Maybe their chest, maybe their shoulders. Speed ups don't always have to be high. If you hit a really deep dink and someone steps back, now instead of attacking their shoulders, you can speed up at their feet or at their hips. A really easy way to win points is by going cross court with one player consistently, and whenever one ball gets a little bit too high, take advantage of their partner who's been sleeping and just watching the rally the entire time. Usually you can catch them off guard. I know I've mentioned these already, but when you do speed up, look for different areas of your opponent. So a lot of people that hold their paddle more towards their backhand side, their right shoulder is very, very vulnerable, so you want to aim here. If someone sits like this all the time, then aim for their left hip. Basically, go for the opposite side of where their paddle typically is. And the golden rule of pickleball, you never win a point off the initial speed up. You have to always speed it up and then clean it up. Shout out Tyson McGuffin.
Now let's cover something that will help you win more points after the ball is sped up. A big difference between 4-0s and 5-0s is their reaction time and ability to win hands battles. There's lots of ways to improve your hands and reflexes at the kitchen, so we're just going to walk you through one of our favorite drills that will help you improve really fast right now. The easiest way to improve your hands is to start outside of the kitchen and just hit hands battles. Keep it simple at first, get nice and warm, and then we will introduce the next part of this drill. And once you're nice and warm, go ahead and step into the kitchen. Now do the same thing, a hands battle, and your reflexes will improve even faster because the ball is closer than it actually will be when you're playing a match. Now when you step back outside of the kitchen, like this, everything's gonna feel like it's in slow motion because you just improved your reflexes by doing a hands battle inside of the kitchen rather than out. Get wrecked, Shay. Reaction time drills like this improve your hands not only at the kitchen, but everywhere else on the court. So definitely practice hands drills when you have the time.
Moving on to number 7, 5-0s use a variety of different serves to keep opponents off balance and test their weaknesses. If you stick with the same serve over and over, opponents will learn and adapt to the shot. So you want to try mixing up different serves in between points. Really, we're just looking for one that throws our opponent off and then keep tweaking it slightly to keep throwing them even more and more off balance. Most of the serves you hit are probably topspin serves, but there are several other options. For example, you can just hit a high lofty serve to change up the pace. You can hit the ball with underspin or slice to make it slightly kick as it hits the ground. You can even change where you hit the serve from. Usually we recommend that people have one consistent spot that they serve from, but if you happen to walk to the other side of the court, now you can hit short angle serves, and they might be expecting a short angle serve, so you can serve to the tee from here as well. Basically, just do a bunch of different things that will throw your opponents off so they never really know what's coming next. The goal of these serves are to find weaknesses in your opponents that you can exploit not only on the serve, but in other areas of the game as well.
Number 8 is one of the truest signs of a 5-0. It's how they handle the transition zone. A 5-0 is not only comfortable moving through the midcourt, they know how to work their way forward and mitigate attacks. A typical 4-0 wants to get through the transition zone as fast as possible because typically the midcourt means danger. You're likely to get sped up at, or a ball's gonna get hit at your feet, and that's difficult to defend. So most 4-0s like to run through the transition zone as fast as possible. Now that's not a terrible idea, but the problem is once you get to higher levels, you probably can't make your way up all the way to the kitchen line off of one single drop or one single drive. So a 5-0 understands they have to work their way through the transition zone. That means hitting a single drop and then going, split stepping, getting really low, and then hitting a reset or another drop and slowly gaining ground throughout the transition zone. One of the biggest tips that's going to help you in the transition zone is getting low. Just like in all other areas in pickleball, getting low helps you stay stable. But in the transition zone, most balls are coming at your feet, so you need to be ready to block. Getting down really low and staying in that grounded position is going to make your shots a lot safer and more consistent. The next tip is to hit resets. You're probably gonna have a ball come at you just like this, and your job is to dink and work your way up to the kitchen through controlled resets. And that's pretty much what you need to do. The goal of a reset is to take pace off of the ball and control it into the kitchen so you can work your way up to the net. One problem I see a lot of lower level players do is outpacing their partner. So if Shay hits a drop, he's gonna have a better read on whether that drop was high or low and how far we should move up accordingly. The last thing I wanna do is after Shay hits a drop, run up all the way ahead of him and leave a giant gap in between us. And the final tip for the transition zone is to just stay patient and know it's gonna take several shots to make progress. That's part of the game. That's what you need to get comfortable with.
You'll know you're playing against a 5-0 when their footwork looks different. Every motion is balanced and propels them toward the right position. So let's focus on 3 main ways you can improve your footwork. 5-0 players know that it's super important to get all the way up to the kitchen line after return. So to do this, they have to have the most efficient footwork possible. Players at lower levels tend to just hit the ball off of a return and never really consider their footwork or how they're moving as they're hitting it. But advanced players do something like this. Generally, you want to step with your right foot, get the ball on the outside of your right foot so that as you're hitting the ball, you can load your weight onto that foot and hit and move forward at the same time with your left foot. So now you're already approaching the kitchen. The same thing applies on your backhand. You want to load on your back foot, step with your forward foot, transition your weight forward, and then as you make contact, start moving forward as you approach the kitchen. 5-0s are always ready for the next shot, and how they do this is by split stepping. So after you make that return and you start approaching the kitchen, you have to split step. To do this, take one final step and then take both feet out to the side like this and get low and in a ready position. A lot of times you'll see players just standing up as the ball is coming towards them, but the most advanced players are always squatted, they're loaded, and they're balanced, ready to move in either direction. A really important note on the split step is you don't want to split step forward like this. Instead, you want to come up, take a step, split step sideways. Once you're in a split step, you have to know how to move the best way possible. There's 3 ways you can move. You can either shuffle, you can pivot, or you can reach. Pretty much the key here is that you want to push off your outside foot in every scenario. So if I want to move from my right to my left, I can shuffle by loading on my right foot, pushing to the left like this. I could pivot by loading on my outside right foot, pivoting across my left, or I could reach by pushing off my outside foot onto my left and reaching really far. The thing you don't want to do is put your weight on your inside foot, move it closer to your outside foot, and then try to make a step. You'll see this happen all the time by less experienced players.
Our final difference is what 5-0s do between matches. While just playing the sport is helpful, it doesn't let you target growth areas to up your game. That's why 5-0s value drilling more than most 4-0s. The first drill we have lined up for you is to hit 30 dinks in a row. Now that might sound easy, but we're not saying hit easy dinks. We're saying make it complicated and move your partner around consistently throughout the court. So getting 30 in a row should be challenging, and this will allow you to practice that footwork we learned earlier as part of your dink routine. The next most important thing to master is serves and returns. It sounds boring to just hit a bunch of serves or hit a bunch of returns, but these are the 2 shots that happen every single point, so you need to have them down. Try using that variety we taught you earlier to mix up your serves and try out different techniques. Also, use that spin continuity we also mentioned earlier to counter the right shots with the right spin. A final drill to try out that's actually really fun is called 7-11. It's gonna help you with your transition game and working your way up to the kitchen line. Also, you only need one partner to basically simulate real points, so you definitely want to play this one. You're gonna have one player start at the kitchen line. In this case, we have Shay starting at the kitchen line. And then the other player is going to step all the way back to the baseline. Shay's goal is to get to 11 points since he's getting to play offense the entire time already at the kitchen line. How it starts is Shay feeds me a ball, then I'm going to hit a drive or a drop, and we play out the point after that like usual. Then after you've completed a game, go ahead and switch positions and start over again. It's really fun. You basically get to simulate real matches with only 2 people, and it's a great way to practice working through the transition zone. If you want even more drills, we have an entire drills video that we're gonna place right here. You should go watch now.
Subscribe if you like this video, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.